do, I'm going to share my screen here for a moment, and I'm going to use screenshots to walk you through a couple of these tips. As you'll see in just a moment, if I didn't use screenshots, I would actually abruptly disconnect myself while trying to demonstrate one of these two tips. But let me share my screen here, and we'll get going. All right, now, hopefully, you should see my browser, and I see it in the little preview window here. So, okay, as a starting point, one of the things that I think we often want to do but don't always do is to remember to enable Do Not Disturb, right? On your Mac, you've got a nice little toggle up here for Do Not Disturb. I find that about, I'm going to say conservatively, 40% of the time, before I start to record a video or before I go live, I neglect to click that little Do Not Disturb button, and the end result is that, of course, I get obnoxious pop-ups or the phone ringing or any number of other things happening during my live events. So the first tip that I want to share here is actually a pointer to an app. It's an inexpensive app, although it is a pay app. However, it has saved me numerous times from the embarrassment of obnoxious pop-ups. And I'll also point out, one of the things about the native Do Not Disturb mode, either on your laptop or on your phone, is oftentimes, depending on settings, you'll find that VIPs or family members in your address book will still ring through even when you have Do Not Disturb turned on. So I introduce you to an app known as Muzzle. Muzzle is a very simple Mac app, and its sole purpose is to silence the embarrassing notifications that might otherwise pop up while you are sharing your screen or doing a live. I actually love their landing page. Their homepage is really funny. If you take the time to pay attention to any of the notifications, they're just bordering on inappropriate, but they're funny enough that you can pay attention and enjoy seeing them. So, all right, this is the Muzzle homepage, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to launch Muzzle on my machine so you can also see all it does is it pops up a little icon up here in your toolbar. It's got a little muzzled dog or a horse. I think it's a dog, actually. Um, and there's not really any options, right? Once you've enabled Muzzle, it's going to automatically mute all notifications. So above and beyond the Do Not Disturb mode on your Mac natively, this is going to go one step farther in ensuring that you don't get obnoxious notifications. So that's tip number one. Use Muzzle, right? It's going to save you from embarrassing notifications that either slip through your Do Not Disturb settings, or worse, if you have forgotten to enable Do Not Disturb, it essentially forces it on your machine. All right, so that's the first of two. The second thing I'm going to show you here, if you look at my screen now, you'll see I've only got 4 open tabs, and this is not typical of my machine. In fact, I took some screenshots here this morning to show you, what my normal life on my desktop might look like. So this is a typical day for me, right? I've got my browser open, and as you can probably see, as I hope you can see, let's see if I'm getting Inception mode going over here. You should be able to see that, a normal day for me, I've got some 80 tabs open in my browser. I've got all sorts of applications open on my machine. It's not really an ideal environment for live streaming. So one of the other things that I recommend you do, and this is something that I've been doing long before ever finding Muzzle, but that will also really help to avoid either performance problems or embarrassing notifications, is to create a new account on your machine. Now, in the screenshots here, I'm doing this on my Mac. You can do the same thing on a Windows or a Linux or really any other modern desktop or laptop machine. But what I would encourage you to do is create a secondary account. In this case, the account I'm creating is simply called Presenter Mode. And the idea is this Presenter Mode account will not have any of the applications that I've set up. It's not going to have any icons on the desktop. It's not going to have anything running. And it allows me to essentially log in as a kind of an empty user account right before I go live and avoid all of the clutter that might normally be present on my desktop. Now, I would encourage you when setting this up to do this well in advance, because you'll find when you set up a new account, there may be settings that you have to confirm. You also might need to make sure and provide access to the files and folders that you want to share with this account. So if your presentations, PDFs, or other media are owned by your normal user account, you might have to put them in a shared directory or a public directory in order for your secondary, your presenter mode user account to have access to them. Now, to go a step further, once you've created this presenter mode, I encourage you to make this user an administrator. Otherwise, again, you might have a difficult time getting access to microphones or cameras or other hardware on your Mac. Once you've set up this new user as an administrative user, I do not encourage you to use the fast user mode switching that you can see here in this screenshot. Right, in this screenshot, I've selected my name up in the upper right-hand corner of my desktop, and here you see I could simply click on presenter mode and switch my user account. I've zoomed in here to show you what you should be looking at. Again, I've highlighted this in pink because this is what you shouldn't do. And the reason you don't want to do this is when you use fast mode switching or fast user switching, in essence, you're not logging out of your main account. You're simply pushing it to the background. And that means everything that's already running in your user account is also still running, and you're now logging in as another user account. Now, in theory, when you switch modes, the applications that were in the foreground on your Mac should go to background and use less memory and less CPU, but they're still running. So I don't encourage you to use fast user mode switching. Instead, to take advantage of this new presenter mode account, I would encourage you to simply log out of your primary account and then log back in with your new user account. Again, this will also, if you do this well enough in advance, this will give you plenty of opportunity to test out all the applications you need to run, to make sure you've got access to all the files that you'll need to present or share, and to make sure that you can control the hardware that you'll be using for your live streams. I think that's pretty much it. Here you go. So this is an example. Again, I just did this morning, created a new presenter mode account for the purposes of this demonstration, and you can see in contrast to my normal desktop where I had tons of applications running and icons up in my toolbar and all sorts of things on my desktop. This is essentially just a blank account. And so once I've logged out of my primary account and logged into presenter mode, this is the rough equivalent of a brand new, freshly set up Mac. So regardless of the hardware capabilities of your laptop or desktop, by doing this, you will essentially get that fresh new computer feel, and you'll be able to present without your fan spinning up and memory errors and notifications and everything else that's tied to your normal personal account. That's pretty much it. So those are the two tips. The first tip, as a reminder again, was an application called Muzzle, and I'll just jump back over to my browser briefly here and show you. I think I will, or I won't. Well, the first app was called Muzzle, and Muzzle, again, kind of forcibly silences notifications so you don't get pop-ups from your calendar or your mother-in-law in the middle of a live presentation. The second is simply create a new user account specifically for presenting or live streaming and log out of your main account before then proceeding to stream or use that new account.
Oh my goodness.